This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays are over, the decorations are down, and suddenly everything feels a little empty. It's normal to feel the winter blues after the holiday excitement. January, February, and March are by far my least favorite months of the year. It's cold and dark, and I have to get some extra vitamin D on board. I also need to keep my regular scheduled appointments with my therapist. So if you're feeling that post-holiday funk, I definitely suggest you checking out BetterHelp because maybe it's time to talk. You might also be one of those people like me who makes New Year's resolutions and you get super motivated. So maybe you need someone behind you to hold you accountable and come up with a plan to meet your goals. BetterHelp is super convenient, totally online. You have a therapist right at your fingertips whenever you need them. So head over to betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/wifeofcrime1 for 10% off your first month.
This podcast is an unscripted, unedited conversation about true crime. We take the cases very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously at all. And neither should you. Welcome to Wife of Crime.
So, Russ, when we don't have all the facts, all the details of an investigation, we just assume that the police and the medical examiners and everyone involved is going to do the right thing. But what if you find out they don't? In the case I'm telling you today, the death was ruled a suicide. But there is so much more to this story. This is the case of Tiffany Valiante. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wife of Crime, a true crime podcast where I tell my husband, Russ, true crime stories and he reacts to them.
What's up, folks? It's your boy, Russ, a.k.a. straight from Call of Duty.
Yeah. You are.
Yeah, I was playing Call of Duty all day.
You were.
And then I interrupted my Call of Duty to sit at this table, and we have to record 2 episodes back to back.
Back to back.
Like Drake.
You know why?
Why?
Because we're the biggest procrastinators that ever lived.
No. So you figure each episode's roughly an hour or probably an hour and a half, and it's going to be a lot of drinking.
Yeah, a lot of drinking. Well, we were supposed to record last night, but someone fell asleep by about 6 p.m.
That's because you took me to your favorite restaurant of all time, the Green Dragon, which was actually closed down last week for cockroaches.
It was.
And we went right back.
We did. You know why? Because I trust the Green Dragon. I know in New York City.
Why are we doing commercials for this Chinese food restaurant?
Because it's the best. I love it.
It's good Chinese food.
We've talked about the Green Dragon before on our episodes because we've talked about Cindy.
If you're in the Bronx, go there and say hi to Cindy, but don't tell us you're going because I won't meet you there.
And just know that they did get closed down by the health department, but only for a couple mistakes, and now they're super clean.
So where we were going with that is I went there. Of course, Jess loves Chinese food nowadays. And obviously I had General Tso's because I am Russ, a.k.a. Profiler, a.k.a. Mr. General Tso. And I had a zombie drink. And they're a little strong, but I was just tired. I don't know. I'm getting old.
You're getting old. It's winter. The sun goes down at 4 o'clock. Which is the worst? I mean, when is daylight savings time ending? Apparently, it's next year. Hopefully, it happens.
You know what's crazy? I go to work. I leave the house when it's dark. And I get back home from work when it's dark.
Same. It's terrible. It's a terrible way to live. So
I'm just going to kill myself.
Stop. So anyway, it does feel like forever since we recorded last. Forever.
Because we record every week. We must have skipped like 1 week, right?
No, we record every other week. We're bi-weekly.
Nah, because we do Patreon. So
no, you know what it was? Last month, we did start spreading the news on the in-between week, which made us do 4 recordings last month. So it felt like we were doing one every week.
Yeah, we didn't do one last month.
We didn't, but we're doing one later. So look out.
Jess gets so excited for Start Spreading the News.
I do. I love it. I love it. It's so fun. Well, so we have a lot to talk about today. There's a lot of true crime news, actually. I posted a TikTok this week because there is a crazy case out of the University of Idaho. 4 Idaho college students were murdered in their house while they slept. They were stabbed to death, which is so incredibly devastating. And there's just no leads. There's no suspect. And it's kind of crazy. So this case is still developing. I did put out a TikTok or Instagram reel about it because I put out like the information that we know so far. But there's like no leads at all, which is so scary. There's someone just running around who just killed 4 people in their sleep.
I didn't look into that at all. And to be honest, I didn't watch your TikTok.
You didn't?
No.
Why not?
Because I figured you were going to tell me about it anyway eventually.
Yeah, but you should still watch them when I post.
I gave it a like.
Well, thanks. That was nice.
What's my TikTok too?
Well, I mean, kind of. You don't do anything on it. So it's not really.
Yeah, but you couldn't be a wife of crime if you didn't have a husband.
That is true. I couldn't. So yeah, there's some crazy true crime news at the moment. You would have been
spinster of crime.
Doesn't have the same ring at all. But there's crazy true crime news at the moment. I'm going to get into another update on a case later. But before we do, you have 2 jobs.
Oh, shit.
And you need to do your review of the week and the patron shout outs.
All right, guys. So I guess we're going to start with review of the week. Leave us a review on Apple because that's where I can see them until the other places where you can listen step up.
Mm-hmm. And
not like those ones that hardly anyone uses. It's got to be like Spotify or Apple. Don't tell me like
some random
my favorite podcast website that my uncle started.com lets you leave reviews.
We have reviews on Audible. Did you know that?
Yeah, because I use Audible at work.
Oh, okay. I was really excited when I saw those. Thanks for the people who left reviews on Audible.
Yeah, keep listening to books because we don't read. So this one it says top 10. It's from Dear Dahlia. This is the only podcast where I listen to them banter. Russ is hilarious.
Aw.
Shout out to you for the short review. I didn't feel like reading a lot this week.
Yeah, so there you go. Shout out to you. Thank you so much. And I think a lot of people like our banter. That has been something that I've heard many times, that we have good banter. You know why? It's because in the house, Russ is playing video games a lot and barely listens to anything I say until we sit at the table and talk to each other.
Well, you start complaining about work. The doctors talk like this.
Mm-hmm.
Jess is like, don't say this.
Yeah, we can't. Nope. Mm-mm.
All right. So now I'm going to read the people that joined our Patreon. For people that don't know, we have a Patreon. We have a bunch of extra episodes of True Crime and Chill where we review documentaries that are true crime.
Yeah, we watch them together and talk about it.
Yeah. And there's a bunch over there. So if you run out of shit to listen to here, go over there. And these are the people that joined this week.
Yes.
Celeste, Kathy, Amanda, Alyssa, Chris, Fernanda, Robin, Cody, Janae, Mando and Yesenia, Nadia, Kelly Marr, Sheena, Megan, Lucia, Benjamin, Priscilla, and Karen. So cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
I don't have a fresh beer to open, but I got a bottle of wine. Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you so much, guys. And yes, head over to Patreon for any bonus content if you run out of episodes. I always hear that people binge our whole main library.
That's cool.
Yeah, I love that people binge.
And it's crazy because if you listen to how the podcast evolved, like I listen to some episodes, even new ones, I cringe. I don't want to listen to myself. But like the sound evolved.
Yeah.
I ended up getting different mics. We stopped putting the mics backwards.
Yep. Russ started talking more. Russ's personality really came out. The early episodes, you were a little more quiet. People weren't ready. No one was ready for what's in your head.
Yeah.
But it's here. So a couple of episodes ago, on the episode titled Thank God for the Cameras, which was maybe last month or so, we spoke about the case of Debbie Collier in the beginning of that episode. Do you remember that one?
Is that the one where her body was found in New York? She was cheating with the handyman. Your
No.
TikTok, they got those millions of views?
Absolutely not. Totally different.
Oh.
So you really don't pay attention sometimes. Okay.
I don't remember, but I know my KD in Call of Duty right now.
Okay. So Debbie Collier's case, it was the one of the mom in Georgia who went to the dollar store and bought a bunch of items, including like torch,
rope and stuff. I remember that.
Yes, and a tarp. And then she sent her daughter a Venmo payment for $2,385 and said, "They're not going to let me go. I love you. There's a key under the blue flower pot." That whole case. Well, this past week, we found out that Debbie's death has been ruled a suicide. I was shocked.
Wait, but how was she found? Was like she burnt or something?
Yes. Her abdomen was burnt and she was gripping onto a tree, laying down naked with a burnt abdomen, and she was dead. And they said that this was a suicide. So when I originally read it, I was absolutely shocked and I was like, no, there's no way. But, you know, the reality is I'm not a cop. I'm not her family. At the end of the day, we're the people on the outside who are just getting snippets from the media, and we're not involved in the intimate details of any case. So I truly don't know, if it really was a suicide or not, obviously. But, I really did think that it was crazy when I first read it because it just didn't seem, especially with the Venmo message, it just didn't seem like a suicide.
Was she hung or something? I forgot how she died. Tell me.
She was burned and she had inhalation. Like her
mean?
matter of death was smoke inhalation.
So they're saying she set herself on fire?
She set herself on fire, but they were also saying that she inhaled when people commit suicide from the gas from their car?
Oh,
they were saying
carbon monoxide?
Yeah. So she had carbon monoxide in her system and she set herself on fire and she was laying in the woods naked around all the items she bought at the dollar store. It doesn't make sense.
I think they're saying the reason they're probably thinking it's suicide is because she probably gave all the money she had to her daughter or something like that.
Yeah. It's bizarre. So,
How bizarre.
So this is like kind of nuts because... What?
You just ignore me all the time.
I do. So this is kind of nuts because this week's case involves a young woman whose death was also ruled a suicide. But the difference between this one and Debbie Collier's case is that her actual family and friends and even professionals hired by the family say that this is completely ludicrous. So a few months ago, I got a message from one of our loyal listeners. Her name is Danielle. And she asked me to cover her cousin's case. And I get these types of messages a lot. Like you see them come in a lot into the DMs. I get these messages a lot. And while I totally understand why people want me to cover their family members' cases, because it's always a good idea to keep an unsolved case getting attention, but I am sometimes hesitant. Like,
Why?
If the case is recent and still developing, I usually don't want to do an episode until a lot of the information is out in the public because I don't want to spread misinformation, and this podcast lives on. It's on the internet.
That's true. And I don't really take myself seriously. And I'm kind of just like a drunk. Well, I'm not always drunk, but I'm like a buzz dude at a table.
Yeah.
So like people could possibly get mad at me.
Well, I do think that I'm also hesitant sometimes because these are real people and we are a true crime / comedy podcast. Now, our comedy is obviously in our banter, but it's never at the expense of any victims. But we don't want to upset anybody's family, especially someone who's grieving while telling their story. But I've spoken with Danielle many times over the last month, and she's given me so many details about her cousin's case. And I also asked her to make sure that her family is okay, that we cover her cousin's case. And they're like, yes, absolutely, because they just want this story told. So this week's episode is a little bit different from our normal format because if you're new here, just to let you know, Russ legit never, ever has any idea what I'm going to tell him before we record. But this one's a little different because this case was the first episode of the brand new season of Unsolved Mysteries on Netflix. And Russ and I watched it together last night. So this is the first time Russ knows the case ahead of recording. And this is actually going to be more like a True Crime and Chill episode that we have on Patreon because you're going to be able to chime in with things you noticed throughout the episode. However, not only do we have the episode, but I got a lot more information than what was shown on Unsolved Mysteries. I got information from court documents from Danielle, and I'm going to be able to give you even more information that you don't even know yet. So this is the mysterious death of Tiffany Valiante. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Tiffany Valiante grew up in an area of Jersey called Mays Landing. It's just outside of Atlantic City. It seems to be a more rural part of New Jersey.
And it's about 2 hours and 39 minutes from where we live.
Yes, close to Atlantic City. So she had just graduated high school and was going to be heading off to Mercy College in the fall on a volleyball scholarship. Tiffany was a very athletic girl who played volleyball. She was really good at it.
She was tall as fuck.
She was a middle hitter, and she was about to start for Mercy College in her freshman year, which was huge. I don't really know anything about volleyball, but in the episode of Unsolved Mysteries, her mom said that it's super unheard of for a freshman to be a starter.
In a lot of sports, your freshman year, you come in and like you play a little and learn the ropes and you start later on. 'Cause you're in school potentially for 4 years.
Yeah. So she was 6'2", which is really tall for a girl. And that's a detail that everyone needs to keep in mind as I tell this story. So from what I gather, Tiff, her parents, Steve and Diane, and their extended family all lived in the same area.
The dad looked tall as hell, too, because he towered over her.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, he must have been, like, 6'5" or something, because he was bigger than her, and she's 6'2".
Yeah, he's, like, a whole head taller than her. So he's probably, like, 6'5", 6'6", something like that. So their whole extended family lived in the same area, like literally within blocks of each other. Her grandmother lived down the street. Her cousin lived across the street. They all lived right there.
That sounds terrible. You always got to live at least driving distance from your relatives. You don't want anyone living walking distance.
I don't think so. I think that's nice. That's nice. Maybe they like their family. On July 12th, 2015, Tiffany's cousin had a graduation party, and they lived right down the block. So there were cars parked lining the street between Tiffany's house and her cousin's house. Tiff spent the whole day over there. According to everyone at the party, she was playing volleyball, she was playing in the pool, laughing, having a good time. Like, no one at the party reported any type of odd behavior. She was just having fun.
And when they were choosing up teams for volleyball during the family,
she's the number one pick.
She was probably getting picked for it. It was like, yo, you cheating. You can't pick her, man.
Yeah, exactly. She's the number one draft pick.
Yeah.
For sure. So later in the evening, around 9:15, Tiffany was back at her house with her mom. And then one of Tiffany's friends pulled into the driveway, got out of the car, and started yelling at Tiffany. She was accusing her of stealing her credit card and using it to buy some things. Tiffany immediately denied it in front of the girl. But once the girl left, she admitted to her mom that she actually did use the girl's credit card.
Yeah, that's a tricky situation. So that gives a little motive for another character. Like, you use this person's credit card, they're pissed at you. I wonder, like, if they at least had to look at the other girl.
Yeah. Well, we're not.
I'm not saying she did it.
We're not there yet.
But
yeah, we haven't even talked about what happened.
This is probably why you shouldn't let me know the story first.
Well, the difference between the True Crime and Chill episodes in this is that all the Patron fam watched the documentary first too. So that's the difference. So we can talk about the end in the beginning. So after she admitted to her mom that she stole this credit card, Diane was like, WTF, why would you do that? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, that's not cool.
And she was understandably annoyed at her daughter. Like, what are you thinking? What are you doing?
Yeah,
you don't need to do that.
Sometimes people make mistakes.
Exactly.
But I'm curious what she bought. Like, did she need... Like, I doubt she was longing for necessities. Like, she seemed like she lived in a decent house.
Yeah.
You know, she probably had the things she needed.
Yeah, I don't know what she bought with it, but her mom was visibly annoyed, and they got into like a little bit of a tiff about it. So about 10 to 15 minutes later, Diane and Steve, they can't find Tiffany. They head to the yard and the driveway, and they're kind of looking all over for her. They begin calling her phone, but no one answers. So then they start calling, her cousins and family members at the party, asking, "Have you seen Tiff?" They call Tiffany's grandmother, who lives down the street, thinking, "Oh, maybe she went over to her grandmother's house." Sometimes you go to your grandmom's house to kind of escape issues because grandmoms are the best.
Yeah, when moms are annoying, you go to your grandma.
Yes.
Like I always said, I wish I could be a grandpa, but I don't want to be a dad, so I can't be a grandpa.
You can't skip the step.
Yeah, because I'd be the best grandpa.
Yeah.
Like, I'd call them little shit. I would, like, give them money.
You would call them little shit. That would make you a good grandpa by calling them little shit.
Yeah, you're like, "Come here, you little shit." But then you give them, like, $20, the handshake.
So they check in with the grandma down the street, but she wasn't there either. It's as if she just kind of vanished out of thin air. Like I said, she's 6'2". You literally can't miss her. Plus, there was a lot of people parked up and down the street for the party. So someone must have seen her walking, right?
Someone. But you see her walking, you don't care. She lives there. Like,
It
isn't like, "Oh, look, she's walking." Like,
you think, "Oh, she's just, walking down to her grandmom's or something."
Yeah.
So while searching, Steve finds Tiffany's phone laying in the grass at the top of the driveway. He immediately got scared. Like, immediately, because he says... Everyone knows.
Cell phones do not leave a woman's hand.
Not even a woman, especially a teenage girl.
Oh, yeah. And she probably...
Teenagers are glued to their phone.
Oh, she probably was on Instagram and all that, showing her volleyball and all that,
Yeah,
Kids love that shit.
And her dad and mom said, like...
I would have been all over showing how cool I was.
Exactly. So her parents said that she always has her phone on her. She even goes into the shower with her phone.
Me too, because I watch basketball. I put my phone on the ledge while I'm showering. I watch a basketball game.
Exactly. So he was immediately scared and caught off guard by this to find her phone just laying in the grass at the top of the driveway. So they decided they would check the deer camera. So there's a deer camera on their house facing the beginning part of their driveway. And they check it. They see Tiffany walk in front of the camera at 9:28 p.m.
I wonder why they have a deer camera. Like, you're not going to shoot the deer. Do you just want to, like, watch it?
Yeah, sometimes people like to watch it.
You don't know why.
They want to watch the deer.
You're thinking that.
Yeah, why else would you have one except to watch deer?
Well, if they're all over, like there's deers like Canella all over the place.
I don't know. Ask some of our people who live in the woods. Why do you guys have deer cameras? I don't know why they have it, but I'm assuming because they want to look at them. So they see Tiffany walk in front of the camera at 9:28 p.m. And she's wearing a black t-shirt, light blue denim shorts, a white headband, with her hair up in a messy bun, and a new pair of white slip-on shoes.
That's the messy bun and the headband is girl high school athlete uniform.
Yeah, definitely.
I've never not seen a girl athlete in that, like, messy bun headbands style.
Definitely. Now, they continue to watch the camera, and literally 1 minute later, you see Diane and Steve walk out looking for Tiffany, and she's nowhere to be found. 1 minute later. Like, how far could she have gotten on foot in 1 minute? Not very far.
60 seconds ahead.
At this point, the whole family, including her uncles and cousins at the party, have been searching for her for the last few hours. One of her uncles, who was a retired highway patrol officer, decided to get in his car and start driving around a little further away from the neighborhood. Like, now he's trying to get a little further out, thinking, it's been a couple hours. Maybe she's gone far. Yeah,
and you could walk, like I said, when I was walking at work, just to, like, keep my legs moving when I wasn't busy. If you walk briskly, not super, super fast, it takes about 15 minutes to walk a mile.
Exactly. So her uncle sees flashing lights and a ton of cop cars in the distance, about 3 miles away from the Valiante home. And he decides to drive over there. Now, there's something that I need to note here that's really important. On the episode, you can see this really well because they show maps. So I'm going to try to find a map and post it on the socials with this episode post.
At Wife of Crime Pod on Instagram?
Yes. But it's not like a straight shot from the house to the crime scene where all the cop cars are. It's 3 miles away, but you need to make a left out of the neighborhood, go straight down a long road, make a right onto the train tracks, and go another like quarter to half a mile down. It's not a straight shot. So it's not like he just drove out of the neighborhood and then in the far distance, 3 miles away, sees cop cars. He had to like drive around, take a couple turns to get there. And that's something that is really important when you start to get all the details of this case. So Tiffany's uncle gets out of the car and he goes up to one of the officers to ask what's going on. The officer said someone was hit by the train. But the officer said even though this happened in Hamilton Township, the Hamilton Township Police Department is not taking care of this investigation because it was on a New Jersey Transit train. So now the New Jersey Transit police are investigating it. Her uncle told the officer he was looking for his niece, and he asked if the victim is a female. The officer said yes.
Oof.
And he asked if he could come and identify the remains. Tiffany was hit by train number 4963 at 11:16 p.m.
At mile 45.
At mile marker 45. So Michael had the painful job of identifying her remains. Tiffany was dismembered by the train. She was in multiple pieces.
It sounded like she was so bad, like she would have almost been unrecognizable.
Yeah. And, you know, in the episode, he said, although it was literally one of the worst moments of his entire life, he is so glad that he was the one there and it wasn't his brother. And that just shows, like, how much he cares about his brother's feelings, because he said, like, Tiffany's dad wouldn't have been able to, this would have broken him to see his daughter like this.
And, you know, that's an image that you'll never get out of your head, ever.
Absolutely. Yeah. So
that's why even in funerals, I don't like to go look at the body because I could never get that last image out of my head.
Yeah, you don't look at the casket.
I prefer to not even go in. I prefer to, like, have that living memory in my head of the person.
Yeah, I feel that. I think that a lot of people don't like open caskets and kind of stay in the back for that same reason.
I don't even necessarily like going in the room. Like, I'll just go to the funeral to pay respects, but
you kind of stay outside.
I don't even really want to go in the room.
Unfortunately, because of my job, I'm really desensitized by dead bodies. I've seen a lot of them and touched a lot of them. So I'm kind of desensitized at this point. So he went to identify the remains, and it was definitely her. And now Michael had the horrible job of having to break the news to his brother. So Michael and the police drive to Steve and Diane's house to tell them that Tiffany was hit by a train. And they completely lost it, obviously.
Because that's the last thing you would think that happens. If someone disappears, it seems like it's more likely than getting hit by a train.
Yeah.
So you're in shock.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, what? I'd be like, no.
Not only in shock, like, first of all, your child has died, but they've died in the most like a horribly brutal manner. So this is about 12 to 1 a.m. at this point when they find out. That morning, July 13th, less than 12 hours after Tiffany died, news outlets started reporting her death as a suicide. This is before any other information has come out. Before the autopsy was done, they started reporting it as a suicide, which her family absolutely denies to this day. 5 days later, on July 18th, an autopsy was performed, and it ruled her death a suicide. Now, according to the family, not a single investigator from the New Jersey Transit questioned them at all. Not one person came to their house, talked to them about her mental state before the accident. No one spoke to them at all.
That's weird.
Which is super weird.
They're probably not used to investigating this type of stuff. I feel like New Jersey Transit, they're probably just arresting people that don't pay their fares.
Yeah,
stuff.
like they don't deal with death investigations. And that's something we're going to talk about in a little bit.
But also, they also tested her body and there was not one drop of alcohol, no drugs, no nothing. So she was in her right state of mind. It wasn't like an altered state of mind.
Exactly.
Sometimes you make stupid decisions, or sometimes I make stupid decisions sober. I don't know.
Although the family was adamant about the fact that Tiffany would never kill herself, they decided to hold memorial services for her and then have her remains cremated. The 2 weeks following her death were like an absolute blur, according to her family, which I totally get because it's so shocking. Like, it's such a shocking thing to go through. But after the initial shock started subsiding, that's when all the questions come up. And I totally understand, in the moment, something this crazy happens and you're kind of just like on autopilot and you're not really thinking through all the details. And then this happens and then you get through it a couple weeks and you're like, wait. And then you start thinking of all the questions you have about it. So the New Jersey Transit closed Tiffany's case within a week. And the family was expected to just move on with their lives with no answers. According to Danielle, who I've been communicating with, she told me the family didn't even receive the autopsy report until they went to court and fought for it months later.
Why does other people have more rights to the autopsy than someone's family?
I guess because it was part of the case files and they didn't, I don't know.
But if there was nothing criminal that happened here, then you don't deserve, you don't even have any right to the autopsy. You're only there to
perform it.
To perform it and see if there was any criminal activity. There was no criminal activity. Release everything. It's none of your business anymore.
But the problem is that they didn't even look at this as criminal. They went into this autopsy just assuming it was a suicide, which is what a huge mistake that they made. The medical examiner's office made.
Yeah, you can't assume. You at least have to look at both scenarios and see which one is more likely.
Mm-hmm.
And no one will ever actually know, but there will be clues that will lead you in one direction more than the other.
Or reasonable doubt. The problem is that this is the New Jersey Transit Police. They don't do death investigations. They don't do homicide investigations. It's not their wheelhouse. So they're not going to treat this in the same way that a regular police department would treat this investigation.
There's one New Jersey Transit dude right now that just got a Dunkin' Donuts or Krispy Kreme with the freshest hot donuts and is like, I do a good job.
No, they do a good job at what they do.
But maybe some of them do better.
I said that's not their wheelhouse. Okay, I was an ER nurse. Now I'm a radiology nurse. I know absolutely nothing about neonatal ICU. You think you could just throw me in there and I would know what to do? I would be lost.
Well, I could tell you if you want, next time you want to know about neonatal ICUs.
Okay, good.
I fell down the YouTube rabbit hole and I'm an expert now.
I bet you are.
And also ant farms lately.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they put a cockroach in the ant farms and the ants destroyed that sucker.
Wow.
It was crazy.
Interesting. So now at this point in the show, while we're watching, you said it does seem like it could be a suicide. We were about 20 minutes in.
Yeah, I was like, all right, it could be a suicide. She's hit by a train. There's no evidence.
Well, I think that the way Unsolved Mysteries set up the case was to show us, okay, how if a case is not fully and properly investigated, it does seem that way from the outside, from people that don't know Tiffany and don't know all the details. It could be plausible, right? And I think that they were showing that. But I have a lot more to tell.
Boom, 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 boom.
Okay, guys, I'm going to take a quick break to tell you about another husband and wife duo in the true crime space, and their podcast is called Crime Salad. I'm going to play their trailer so you can hear what they're all about. They are so awesome. Definitely go give them a listen.
Hey there, my name is Ashley. And I'm Ricky. We're husband and wife, part-time investigators, and hosts of the podcast Crime Salad.
Crime Salad is a true crime podcast that investigates sudden disappearances, mysterious deaths, unsuspecting massacres, while also bringing attention to current cases or cases you may not have heard of. Some cases include twists, turns, and shocking conclusions, like the Lululemon murders or the episode titled Ghost in the Wind, The Disappearance of Jolene Cummings. We cover all of the cases and true crime tales we're all craving to learn about. If any of these stories intrigue you, we recommend listening to Crime Salad wherever you're listening now.
Last year, Save More Money was the most popular New Year's resolution in America. Clearly, a lot of us feel like our money is slipping through our fingers. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm not the best saver, and I don't know much about investing until I started saving and investing with Acorns. Turns out you don't have to be an expert at all because Acorns will recommend a diversified portfolio that fits you and your money goals. And I always thought that when people say, ooh, I invest in stocks, that they had a ton of money or something. Well, you don't need to be rich. Acorns lets you invest with the spare money you've got right now. You can literally start with $5. And you know you guys are spending that at Starbucks on these fancy lattes. So skip the coffee and invest with Acorns. You don't even need a ton of time. Like you can just sign up and start investing within 5 minutes. Head over to acorns.com/wifeofcrime or download the Acorns app to start saving and investing for your future today. That's acorns.com/wifeofcrime. You guys already know because we have been talking about them for a while now. Via Hemp is by far one of our favorite sponsors we've ever had, okay? We use their products all the time. Maybe you're a little like me. You're a little anxious. You have a hard time settling down. You're kind of wound up a lot. If that's you, Via Hemp products are for you. Check out their website. You will find something that speaks to you. Maybe you're like Russ. You have a hard time sleeping because you have bad nerve pain or chronic pain. Then Via Hemp is for you because their gummies will help you get some quality sleep. Maybe you're looking to have a really good time. Maybe you just really like edibles. You want to laugh. You want to get the munchies. You want to watch a movie and have a really strong belly laugh. Then Via Hemp products are for you, okay? They're literally for everybody. So head over to viahemp.com, promo code wifeofcrime1 to get 15% off your first order. That's VIIAHEMP.com. Wife of Crime #1 for 15% off your first order. So the family enlisted the help of an attorney named Paul D'Amato. And when we meet him in the show, he even says, you know, I was going to just review the documents of the case and kind of tell this family, sorry, there isn't much I can do for you. Your daughter killed herself. But after reviewing everything, he said there's absolutely no way I could have supported the suicide ruling. So let's go back to the start. Let's go back to the very beginning.
A very good place to start.
It's a very good place to start. So Tiffany is last spotted on the deer camera in her driveway at 9:28 p.m. And when you look deeper into the picture, if you look all the way to the right of the picture, you can clearly see a set of headlights in the distance, and they appear to be at the end of the driveway. Where the headlights are on the camera is like right around where Tiffany's phone would be found on the ground later by her father. So according to New Jersey Transit's report, Tiffany would have walked from her driveway to the site where she was hit. This is 3 miles away, like we said. And a large stretch of this walk was on a road called Tilton Road. No one has ever come forward to say they saw a 6'2" girl walking on the road at any time that evening, which, maybe no one did.
I felt a little different than everyone else did. People probably aren't going to agree with me, but when you're just driving by on a dark road, you don't really notice the height of a girl or something like that.
Like you don't pay attention.
Yeah, and you just don't. 6'2" is tall, But in life in general, it's not that tall. That isn't something that would stand out unless you see them in person, like not in a car, like in a crowd.
Or like you're standing next to them.
Yeah, if you're standing next to them, then you realize how tall someone is.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be next to something for perspective in order to see how tall that person, how out of the ordinary, tall, extraordinary, whatever tall that person is.
That makes sense.
So I didn't feel the same about that point.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. Like when you're just driving by, the perspective isn't there, it's dark, you're not necessarily going to realize how tall someone is unless you're like right up on them. I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. So now let's talk about the actual crime scene. New Jersey transit officers are not well versed in death or homicide investigations, like we said, so this crime scene was an absolute disaster. First of all, nothing was roped off, so it was immediately contaminated, as well as there were numerous things, including body parts of Tiffany, that were left behind.
Yo, that was crazy. Like, I don't know if I'm jumping ahead again, but the uncle said like he found pieces of the skull and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Like blood all over.
I know.
Like they didn't respect the person enough to clean up
their body
parts.
I know. So it wasn't until days later that her two uncles, like you said, went down to the scene to see if they could find anything else belonging to her. So Tiffany's uncles went down there looking for anything else, right? Just trying to find some things that were left behind, but they ended up finding pieces of Tiffany. And just breaks my heart that they had to do that. Now, this is where the case...
That made me feel so uncomfortable.
I bet it did. Now, this is where the case takes a left turn, okay?
At Albuquerque.
I told you earlier, she was wearing a black t-shirt, blue jean shorts, white slip-on shoes, and a white headband. But the only items found on Tiffany's body were her bra and underwear. Her shirt was found on the scene, but it wasn't found on her body or attached to her. It was collected as evidence. But her headband, her shoes, and her shorts were nowhere to be found at the time. So the day her uncles went down to the train tracks, they were there to look for her shoes, shorts, and headband, and they found nothing.
Yeah, she would have assumed that the people that clean up the scene of a crime would do a good job.
Yeah, you would assume. So several weeks after Tiffany died, her mom, Diane, was taking a walk down Tilton Road when suddenly she saw her daughter's shoes, and she was in utter shock. They were just sitting there, lined up, as if they were placed there.
They didn't look thrown.
No, they did not look thrown. They looked
weird.
like they were just placed there near a tree.
See, but now that also leads to you taking your own shoes off, possibly, to me, because if you take off your own shoes, you put them down.
Okay.
If someone else takes your shoes, they ain't going to place them so nicely, probably.
We're going to talk about that. She also found her headband nearby as well, and a yellow sweatshirt that her mother didn't recognize. So this is roughly 2 miles away from the site where she's hid. And it's not 2 miles straight. It's down a road, turn right, around a corner, another quarter mile. It's not a straight shot 2 miles down, okay? So Diane was freaking out and immediately called her husband, who called New Jersey Transit Police. They came out, they took photos, and they bagged up the evidence. Now let's talk about the evidence that was collected. So her shirt at the scene and an axe was also found at the scene. Both were collected, but the shirt was bagged in a plastic bag. Evidence like clothing is never put in plastic bags. Do you know why?
No.
Because moisture collects in plastic bags. So the shirt couldn't be tested because it grew mold on it. Like, that's idiotic that anyone would put clothing in a plastic bag. If you know anything about crime scenes, I mean, I'm just a true crime podcast host, and I know that you don't put things in plastic bags.
You know, that seems like this goes to the lack of experience that these New Jersey Transit officers have with this type of situation.
Definitely. It definitely is. And the axe, well, the New Jersey Transit Police lost it. No one has any idea where it is. It's gone. So the shoes and headband were bagged, but they were actually bagged in a paper bag, which is what you're supposed to do. You're not supposed to put in plastic. You're supposed to put in a paper bag. But the chain of custody was broken multiple times. Do you know what the chain of custody is when it comes to evidence?
Not really.
Chain of custody is when you have a piece of evidence, forensic evidence, you have to pass it along to somebody. You have to hand them that evidence, and there has to be a log of every single person that has touched that evidence. And if the chain of custody is broken, that means we don't know who's touched the evidence. We don't know who's gone inside the bag. We don't know who it's come in contact with. So now, if you test it, you can't rely on the DNA that's on there. Then you possibly could have someone's DNA on the stuff that didn't commit a crime.
Damn.
So that happens with rape kits. I know this because of being a sexual assault forensic examiner. If you have a rape kit, if I perform a rape kit, I have to hand it off to a security officer who then logs it, and then puts it into a closet in the hospital. And it all has to be logged and recorded. Time, the person, their ID number, like everything. And in this case, although it was bagged properly, the chain of custody was broken. And so they couldn't even test it because any DNA on it could be wrong. So let's just entertain the narrative that the New Jersey Transit, presented after finding her shoes. So they first said she walked from her house in her shoes and got hit by a train, but her shoes weren't found. So then they find her shoes 2 miles away. And then this is the explanation that they said. They said, well, she took off her shoes. God knows why she would take off her shoes, for no logical reason, and walked 2 miles from where her shoes were found to the site of where she was hit.
That's weird.
So the street and the train tracks are covered in rocks.
Unless someone forced her to walk, that could be a thing.
Well, the street and the train tracks are covered in rocks. So unless she's walking the entire 2 miles on the actual metal track, like a balance beam, she would have had abrasions all over her feet from the rocks.
Very unlikely, though, that anybody would take off their shoes to walk in such a rough area.
Absolutely.
Especially, I know, I have the most sensitive feet.
You do. You can't walk anywhere without shoes.
I can't walk on smooth concrete.
Exactly.
It's weird.
Her feet, though, were completely clean of abrasions and scrapes. And the family attorney, Paul D'Amato, he actually had a test subject who was a female walk a full 2 miles barefoot, the exact path that Tiffany would have taken according to the New Jersey Transit Police, and then took pictures of this girl's feet after she did it.
That's a shitty job that someone had to do. I wonder how much that person got paid.
Well, who cares? She did a good thing. You know why? Because her feet were covered in dirt and abrasions. I'm glad she did it because it shows her feet were a hot mess with abrasions after going the exact path that Tiffany would have walked barefoot, and Tiffany's feet were completely clean of them. And that just proves that she would not have walked 2 miles to where she was hit barefoot. So there goes that, out the window. Now, Paul also hired a team of independent experts. One of these experts was a lady named Louise. She was a retired Atlantic County senior medical investigator. And Louise talked about the statements from the conductors and the black box. And this is really important. So the train was being driven by a senior and a student conductor, right? It was like a senior guy, and then the student was being probably observed or trained or whatever.
Yeah, like a trainee. Like he probably just got the job or something.
At the scene, the student engineer said that Tiffany darted out from the woods, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in a sworn statement under oath a few days later, he said he didn't see Tiffany at all until he was on top of her. Okay?
I wonder why he said that at first, that she darted out. Maybe you would just assume that's what someone would do.
Well, then in a third interview a few weeks later, he said he saw her standing on the tracks a quarter mile away. In each version of the story, which are all very different, right? In each version of the story, he said that he rang the bell. But when the train's black box was recovered, it shows the bell was never rung.
Sometimes you think you did something and you didn't, though. It's a weird thing. You could like make new memories in your mind of things you didn't do. But I don't know if you could do it like that recently.
Well,
That just happened.
true. In the original statement at the scene, the lead engineer stated he also saw her dart out from the woods. So he corroborated the student engineer's story. But in a sworn statement under oath, he said his back was turned the entire time. And he didn't see anything. But he did say he remembered the student ringing the bell. But the black box confirmed the bell was never rang. So their statements are utter bullshit, inconsistent, and can't be relied on. I'm sure they were in complete shock, understandably. You literally just hit someone with a train. I'm sure they were in total shock. But I'm also thinking, initially, they wanted to cover their ass. Like, they were in shock, but also, we have to make sure we're not personally liable for this. And
how liable can you be, though? Because it takes a long time to stop a train.
it does take a long time to stop a train. So that's why I think at first he said she darted out. And then the second time he said he didn't even see her. And then the third time he said he saw her a quarter mile away. I don't know what he actually saw, but I think the original thing where she darted out, where the both of them said that, it was because they wanted to just make sure that no one thought that they did anything wrong.
I wonder, what if you can ask him, why did your story keep changing?
I don't know.
Maybe you didn't have bad intentions.
Maybe they didn't. I don't think they had malice intent. I think their memory is unreliable because they were probably in shock.
Yeah, because these dudes were just some dudes that went to work. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
I really don't think they had malice intentions.
No, she can't steer the train swerve left, swerve right.
No. I don't think anybody's insinuating that. But it just shows you can't rely on them. Their statements are completely unreliable.
That's true. They have been discredited.
Yes. So now on to the autopsy. It was garbage. The medical examiner did not perform a rape kit, even though her body was found in only her bra and underwear. They did not obtain any...
Maybe because she had her underwear on. I don't know how that goes. I'm just saying. Someone that doesn't know...
They're a medical examiner.
That's their job, right?
Exactly. Of course you wouldn't know that. He also did not obtain fingernail scrapings, under the fingernails, because they automatically went into this thinking it's a suicide.
Dude, I watched CSI 3 times. I know you got to scrape the fingernails.
Yeah, they went into it automatically assuming it's a suicide, so they didn't do all the things you would do in a homicide autopsy. You know what I'm saying? They didn't even look for it. The report stated that her feet had no abrasions, but it also stated she had bruised knuckles on her right hand. Okay. Her toxicology report came back completely clean. And I thought about this because thank God it did. Because when I was a kid at family parties, me and my cousins, a few times, we stole Jell-O shots and we would sneak them into the bathroom and take them.
Which cousin?
I'm trying to remember which cousins. It's been a few.
Well, you got to
I have a lot of cousins.
We got to get it out now.
But we snuck them into the bathroom and took them.
How old?
I was probably 12.
Damn.
Yeah, I think I was probably 12.
You was doing hood rat activities.
I was. Yeah,
You're supposed to be playing tag or manhunt.
No, I was sneaking Jell-O shots in my aunt's little half bathroom.
What else were you doing, Miss Youth Group?
Smoking cigs.
At 12?
Yeah, I started smoking cigs at 12. So what I was saying, though, is I'm really glad that she didn't do things like that, like sneak any alcohol at the party, because that would have been another thing they could have used against her to support a suicide.
Yeah, I was glad right away when they said that because they were like, oh, she was drunk. She stumbled on the track.
Yeah, exactly. So this is good that it came back clean. And I'm glad that she didn't have anything like that in her system. But regardless, they ruled the manner of death a suicide, but it should have been classified as undetermined. Now, something that is huge to me and is actually in the pictures taken at the scene, this is a little bit difficult to talk about, so I'm going to be as delicate as I can. But this is where the trauma nurse inside of me steps in and says, what? Tiffany, was hit by the lower left side of the train. If she was just standing there, okay, unfortunately, we have to try to visualize this to kind of understand. If she's just standing there on the track, or even darted out and jumped in front of a moving train, right? Her body parts would have scattered in different directions because she was dismembered, and the blood would have spattered. Correct? That makes logical sense.
You think?
Because the train was going 80 miles an hour at the time of impact. But at the exact site of impact, on the left side of the train tracks, there is a pool of blood. And this, to me, is huge. And to me, it just further proves that she was injured prior to being hit by the train. She was injured and then placed on the track before the train hit her. I firmly believe this in my soul. There was just way too much blood concentrated in that one area for it to be like a spatter from being hit.
What it seemed like they were saying is she was, because of the amount of blood found in one area on the tracks and a little bit on the side of the track, it looks like she was placed there and bleeding for a while before the train came.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I believe. When you look at the picture, it's way too much blood.
But unless, I don't know how it would work. Like, would the train just run you over and your body would stay there and bleed out and you'd be stuck underneath?
No.
Or would have you gotten hit and then fly some?
That's what happened, unfortunately. She didn't just get hit and stay there.
Yeah, it is uncomfortable.
I understand it's uncomfortable, but it is an important piece of this whole story because that's huge to me. The amount of blood that was concentrated in that one area, you can see it in the picture. It's huge. So the family attorney, Paul D'Amato, has filed multiple lawsuits against the New Jersey Transit for not any compensation.
Negligence.
They don't want compensation. They just want evidence reexamined, and they want Tiffany's manner of death to be changed from suicide to undetermined.
That's very reasonable.
It is.
We're not saying say it was a homicide, just say undetermined so we can keep the case open.
Exactly. Because right now, the case is closed.
Because if they were unreasonable, they would say, you have to make this a homicide or whatever. But saying undetermined shows they're reasonable people.
Absolutely. They just want things looked at a little further. On top of everything I've spoken about so far, another piece of the puzzle is that a deli worker came forward a few months after her death and said that he overheard 3 teenage boys talking about Tiffany's death and how they had heard rumors that it wasn't actually a suicide, but it was actually a murder.
I forgot about that until you said that now, but I do remember.
So the deli worker went to police right away with this hearsay information. When the police questioned the 3 boys, they all denied saying this. So it went nowhere. In 2018, the state medical examiner evaluated the request, right? So Paul D'Amato sent multiple lawsuits. Finally, the state medical examiner evaluated the request.
Yeah.
But he wrote in his evaluation that he read statements made by Tiffany's friends that said her and her mother had been fighting a bit before her death. He also wrote that Tiffany came out as gay in 2015. And although her family was fully supportive, Tiffany's friends say that she felt like she didn't really fit in. So this was
you know what?
The medical examiner's reason for upholding a suicide?
See, but that sounds like an old, closed-minded person. And I bet, she may have felt like she didn't fit in. But whether you're gay or not, most teenagers don't feel like they fit in. So it has nothing to do with being gay.
I agree. And I also
what teenagers fit in? They're all weird. The boys have squeaky voices with acne. The girls are taking tons of bathroom selfies. No one fits in.
Well, I also think that it's a convenient thing to lean on. It's convenient to say, oh, she's gay, she came out as gay, and she didn't feel like she fit in. And it's very convenient to then use that as a reason to uphold a suicide. So this is the theory that the family and team of experts have for the night of July 12th, 2015. They believe Tiffany walked up to the top of her driveway, and got into a car willingly with people she knew. After sitting in the car for a few minutes, someone in the car threw her phone out the window and drove off. They believe the car drove down Tilton Road and that there was a struggle, enabling Tiffany to get out of the car and run towards the woods. Whoever she was with chased after her and grabbed her, but there was definitely a struggle because at this point, her headband fell off and her shoes came off her feet. She was fighting back, which would explain the bruising on the right knuckles, possibly from punching someone or hitting her hand on something. They believe she was murdered or at least badly injured to the point of being possibly unconscious near the crash site and then placed on the track at mile marker 45 and then hit by the train. As of now, the case is at a standstill. There are no new leads. The New Jersey Transit Police and the State Medical Examiner's Office are completely unwilling to reinvestigate this. And Diane says this is so incredibly hard on her family, but they just simply cannot move on. They all know without a shadow of a doubt that Tiffany was murdered, and they want this case shared and out in the public as much as possible with hopes that it'll pressure the New Jersey Transit Police and the State Medical Examiner's Office to revise the death certificate. If it stays as a suicide, it can never be reinvestigated. It'll stay closed. But if it goes to undetermined, they could reopen the case.
The thing is, I wonder if they reopen the case, there's not much more evidence to look into anymore. Her body has been cremated. The crime scene has been contaminated. Trains have ran over it forever. Like, there's no more evidence to look into, even if they ruled this
Undetermined?
Undetermined.
Okay, so, but all the evidence I've presented to you, that's already there?
All right,
the autopsy?
Yes. So they could rule it that, but they don't have any evidence to help them catch the person that they think did it. Like, no, they won't find anything new, I think.
They might not find anything new, but the more attention the case gets, and if it is reopened as a cold case, then they can have an investigator on it. I mean, there's a cold case unit for a reason. Cold case units exist because investigators investigate cold cases, and they might be able to have some manpower behind it.
I guess the only thing they can do,
and the prosecutor's office can get involved,
is ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
They could, like, interview people.
Exactly.
But now that, like, it's getting more publicity, it's on a TV show and it's on this podcast, and maybe another podcast will do it too.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they'll look at the evidence and they'll realize that they may have made a mistake.
That's the hope. That's why they wanted Danielle reach out to me. And that's why after I watched, I communicate with Danielle a little bit, but then I actually watched the Unsolved Mysteries episode. And by the end of that episode, I was like, absolutely not. This girl did not. There is no way. There is no way this girl committed suicide. There's no way. I don't care what anyone says. No way.
Yeah, but you also were saying that 20 minutes in when they didn't even present any evidence.
Because I had already watched it.
Oh.
I didn't watch it for the first time with you.
You're trying to act like a profiler in front of me like you knew.
And I already investigated this whole thing. I already read all about it. There's multiple Reddit threads about this. I've already read them. I mean, this case has become pretty well known on Reddit, especially on unresolved crimes on Reddit. So
Unsolved or unresolved?
Unresolved mysteries on Reddit.
That's like a subreddit?
Yeah. And there's a few posts on there. Plus, I watched the episode already before I watched it with you. Plus, I've been communicating with Danielle. So I already had a lot of information.
Oh, yeah. It definitely seems like it was not a suicide because...
And it's not an accident.
She didn't have her pants on.
It's not an accident. It's not a suicide. Her shorts have never been found. Where are they?
Yeah, where's her clothes?
Her shorts. That's the one piece.
And then why were her shoes over there? And it looks like they were placed.
It does. In the picture, it looks just...
It doesn't look like they were thrown out of a car window while you were driving. Well, they definitely weren't thrown out of a car window while you were driving. Because the chance of them landing like that up and kind of spaced nicely apart is not likely.
Not at all. It's craziness. And I can't believe that it honestly angers me. It pisses me off that these idiots at the state medical examiner's office and these idiots at the New Jersey
oh my
Transit.
God, look at you throwing these names around.
No, it pisses me off that you would have all this information in front of you and you just want to uphold. Why? You know why? They want to uphold it because the New Jersey Transit doesn't want to be held responsible for anything. So if they keep it as a suicide, no one's suing them, they're not responsible, hands are clean, pisses me off. It's unfair. Imagine that's your family member. Imagine how pissed you'd be. I would be so angry I'd burn the place down. Then I'd end up in jail and then I couldn't do anything.
I wouldn't be that mad at them because they're just not smart or experienced. I'd be pissed that she was dead, but acting like that won't bring her back either.
Well, what about the medical examiner? Because they sure as hell are experienced in autopsies. That's their job.
I don't know what their job
I'm not
is.
even trained in it. I'm just a nurse and a podcast host, and I know that none of this makes sense. Like any logical person. Come on. So
Tell them why you mad, son.
if you have any information, if you or anyone you know has any information at all regarding Tiffany Valiante, even if it's small, just call the Atlantic County tip line. I'll post the number, but here it is for you, 609-652-1234. I'll post it on the post for this episode. It really makes me mad, and I hope that we did her case justice on this episode.
Well, I hope they open this back up and go to unresolved so at least they can question what happened.
Mm-hmm.
I like to keep an open mind in a lot of situations and not just going with a predetermined notion and hold on to it.
Yeah. And I think it's dumb if people do that.
Yeah, I'm big on saying I don't know something. Like if I don't know something, I'm just going to tell you I don't know. Like I tell Jess all the time, she'll ask me something. If I have an answer, I do. But sometimes I'm just like, I don't know. And she's like, no, but like, what do you think? I'm like, I literally just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, it's hard for Jess because how smart I am and I know almost everything. But when I don't know something, she gets really mad.
You're annoying.
But it happens like that.
Well, anyway, what?
You're having such a hard time ending the podcast.
I always have a hard time ending this podcast.
All right, guys. So on that note, we are done talking. And if you would like to find us in other places, check out Patreon /WifeOfCrime. Check out Instagram, Wife of Crime Pod. Check out Twitter, which we never tweet, but one day we might. Shout out to Elon.
Oh, don't shout out to Elon.
I like Elon.
Why? What has he done for you lately? Nothing. He's not doing nothing for nobody lately. He's annoying.
No. So
isn't he like totally messing everything up in Twitter? Like, isn't he just
who
being
cares?
a jerk?
If you were rich, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else would you do? Like, you have tons of money, people talking shit. Fuck it, I'll buy Twitter. Like, he's just a rich person
but
fucking
isn't he
around.
firing everyone? Like, isn't everyone losing their jobs? I don't know. I'm just seeing a lot of controversial things.
I know.
So don't shout out to him.
All of a sudden, everyone cares about Twitter. Like, who? Oh my God, look what he's doing to Twitter. A national institution. Like, what?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's the place where, like, kids roast you. Or stupid people give you their opinions.
Yeah, it is a lot of opinions.
So, and all of a sudden everyone's like, oh my God, he's ruining Twitter. Who cares? Someone would just make another app if this one went to shits.
That's true.
Why do you care what he does with his money? It's his money.
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
If I was rich, I'd buy tons of dumb shit.
Well, you're not. You got to go to work tomorrow.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe I'd buy Twitter and just make fun of Kanye. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he deserves it. All right. Well, have a wonderful week, everybody. Check us out on Instagram at Wife of Crime Pod.
I said that. Go buy merch at wifeofcrime.com.
Yeah, go buy merch.
And we may have some new stuff coming.
Not for a little bit.
I was going to say soon, but it's not for a little bit.
Yeah, not for a little bit. But it's coming.
Done talking. Out.
All right. Bye.